the links to John channel here over at Subscribestar, Odyssey, or Rumble. So let's start with these two images because these are the ones where you kind of compare and contrast how the artists are depicting two characters. And I will say the chick, well, this is how they're depicting what is clearly some sort of from somewhere in Africa. This is how they're depicting that character it's black and white, so it's like things are a little ambiguous. And this is a really rough style. So it's harder to tell. And honestly, like I'm not a huge fan of this kind of, I don't know, this kind of quick, rough style until later on in life. And then I can appreciate the usefulness of it. But, when they drew this stuff in 1984, they had no idea that this thing was going to go for 40, 50 years, continue on in the future. Because most things just don't do that. So you're going to have to forgive them if things were a little bit sloppy. And then later on, they gave her this permit. It's like there's hundreds of millions of people from the south of France to Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greek, Turkey, the Byzantine area, Persia, who kind of look vaguely like this. It's like it could be anything of a 500 million people that kind of fit this mold. So, but she's clearly not depicted. I don't think she's like most people are looking at this and go like, yeah, we're not seeing an African character in here. If anything, she looks like a New York Italian girl or something with the big hair thing going on and the hoop earrings. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, first of all, nothing matters in the mainstream because it's all just cultural Marxist anti-white propaganda. It's all bad and it's getting worse and there's no way it's going to turn around. So abandon all hope, ye who enter this mainstream stuff. And it's okay to hate this stuff. And more importantly, hate the people who are pushing this. I think Seth Rogen and Goldstein are behind this one. They should be the focus because they're actually evil people. They hate you. It's a good thing to hate these demons right back. And they really do hate you. They would round you up, turn you into fertilizer if they could. Your words are violence, and their violence is somehow just ignored. So Seth Rogen and Goldstein, anything they see people enjoy. The humans, if they see the humans enjoying something, they're like missiles that seek out joy, and they just spread misery wherever they go. They're wearing their human costumes, I think, and every so often their mask slips. And if you remember last year, some public figure who I guess must be in the left-wing blue sphere, so he's probably an actor. He got his car broken into in the People's Paradise of Los Angeles, California. And he put out a tweet about these thugs, right? My words, not his, stealing his kid's artwork and whatever. And the thing is, obviously he's not going to call them those kind of invectives, but it says a lot when someone who's in the public sphere is talking about crime in California, because it means you're leaving the plantation a little bit. And actually, you're starting to see it now on Twitter, where there are public figures on the left who are kind of starting to bring attention to crime in some of these cities and going like, yeah, like we can look into the future. Cities can't function if you have looting at this scale. So it's a little bit breaking from the herd when they say that, because, it's a huge, huge dog whistle. Like there was with that tweet about Seth Rogen talking to that guy about his car getting broken into. Seth was giving this guy a warning, and there were hundreds of thousands of people that interacted with that tweet exchange. And there was so much going on beneath the surface. Like, if you could see Seth's face as he was typing this, he's wearing one mask, but the face underneath it is pissed because he's sending this guy a warning that you don't talk about the California's crime issues, LA's crime issues, because it says a lot. You're saying that, California's very blue policies are not working, and you're airing that laundry very publicly. And then other people jumped in there and start talking about the homeless tent cities. And I remember this happened like a year ago, and one guy comes in there and goes, well, there's no homeless tent cities in California. What are you talking about? It's just Republican conspiracies. And then everyone in California jumps in and they start showing the photographs of the homeless tent cities in California. I mean, it is that bad. And the worst part is that it's growing every year. It's like the grapes of wrath, but it's just spreading all throughout California. It's like, is that a failed nation that's on the verge of collapse? Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Anyway, so Seth Rogen jumped into that conversation, and he knew that he had to pour cold water on that guy's tweets to discussing the vibrant criminal enrichment of LA and California in general, because in case you haven't been paying attention, California is a dystopian nightmare that used to be shown in films, science fiction films in the 1950s and 60s, showing the future, except it's all actually happening. The future is now. This is the hellscape that the movies predicted. I mean, People are living in cardboard tents and cardboard boxes throughout the cities of California. What else would you call that? Are you winning, California? How are those left wing? Oh, we need to go further left. Doesn't seem like a good idea. You're doubling down on a bad hand. None of this is making sense because everything you're doing is making things worse. If you, especially, I'll say, because California's been bad for a long time, but Portland and Seattle, Oregon and Washington, those used to be funky, sweet little towns, even up until the 90s when I used to go visit. And now, holy cow, all these left wing socialist, liberalist, feminist policies of the 60s and 70s, and then they caught up to Oregon and Washington, and it's like they did it to themselves. Yes, she's fat now in the comic, in the animation, she's fat. All those policies caught up to them, and you look at Oregon and Washington now, you're like, I don't. What happened to these states? They're just like you turned them into the second world. Because, oh, single mothers are just as good as family units. The nuclear family is so outdated. Like, no, it's really not. No, 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 no. I'm not going to say 100% of the like the fired up Christians of the 70s and 80s were right, but they were more right than wrong. Like we would have been way better off if we just went down that path instead of the softer, gentler path of feminism and socialism, which results in families without resources, so they kind of have to marry the state. Anyway, I don't think even the science fiction movies envision so many homeless tent cities full of these lost, depressed, broken, drug addicted people. So anyway, when the guy was talking, oh, yeah, Seth Rogen, that was his Elf movie or Santa movie or something like this, with Sarah Silverman. When the guy was talking about his car getting broken into by the savages, there's your dog whistle, Seth Rogen. There's a lot of reading between the lines because he's saying the policies of LA and California in general are not working out. If anything, it's worse. It must have been more than 1 year ago because I don't know if it was during the BLM stuff or before that, and that was the past 3 years. And you're like, how well are those BLM policies working out? Liberal Democrats living in blue cities. How are those things working out for you? Oh. I think all the Walgreens or something, or Walmarts in Portland had to close because they were open air thieving centers. So essentially, Walmart and the customers are subsidizing the thieves who are going in there and just clearing out the stores, clearing out the shelves. Like, oh well, we can't stay in business, so they left. The same thing happened in San Francisco. They didn't all leave, but they moved to better and better areas. And it's like eventually you're gonna have retail deserts, and then people complain about retail deserts. Like, why do you think that is, bucko? So anyway, the very blue left-wing globalist policies that Seth defends. So he panics and he tries to deflect and imply that the victims of the crime are actually privileged. But the thing is, there's criminals now called the Kia boys. They steal like Hyundais and Kias because they're easy to break into with a USB hack. Those aren't Rolls Royces or $150,000 Teslas. Those are sub $20,000 Kias. They're getting broken into. They get stripped or they get wrecked or they get rolled over and crash. Those are like $18,000 Kias that people use to go about their daily life. So those people, the kids who are stealing them, Kia boys, they just steal them and they just destroy them. So now you have a ripple effect throughout the economy because you have people who are dependent on those cars for their life and they're destroyed. It's like, oh, they're just stealing those cars to steal bread. No, they're just drag racing them and spinning them in circles and totaling them because there's no consequences for these kids. Oh, yeah, they're not stealing $100,000 Teslas because they have security. It's probably impossible to steal those things, and they're not stealing, $80,000 BMWs. They're stealing $18,000 Kias, and in these left cities, you just look at that and go, oh well, they need the car more than you do. It's like until they want to like awaken on their own and realize, oh, I guess the social worker concept is not working out too well. Anyway, so the last thing a globalist useful idiot like Seth wants is for people to focus on California crime, which is the giant elephant in their philosophy that clearly their philosophy doesn't work because it gets worse every year. It only works if you accept high levels of property and violent crime, which some of the left does, but a growing number of the people in the left are finally awakening. Like people in San Francisco who are looking at their cars in their garages getting broken into. They're like, this really can't continue. And Yeah, because it just escalates from property crime into property crime coming in contact with people, and then into crimes against the person, and then into struggle snuggles and the large, Malamans say deleting people from the mortal coil because they get emboldened and they realize like there's no consequences even for struggle snuggle crimes. There's very few consequences. And it's like that's what the cities want. If they vote for it, you get more of it. It's like then they move and then they just spread those policies everywhere else. It's like so goes America, so goes Rome, so goes Brazil. And if entire drug addicted homeless tent cities are a goal of the state of California, which they are, because that's actually part of the cultural Bolshevik model, is to make the people so dependent on the state that it collapses and they rebuild it under socialism, which obviously has been tried before many times for 100 years and doesn't work. Anyway, so Seth implies that the victim should actually check his privilege and accept crime as a vibrant, enriching part of LA. And the funny thing was, that was what told me how effed America was, is that the other probable criminals on Twitter were mad at this guy for bringing crime to the attention of the public. There actually is a large percentage of people in America now that see themselves on the side of these criminals. And I've seen similar weird comments in the YouTube videos about shoplifters who are getting arrested. Other criminals get upset when they get arrested. You can read it for yourself, and you'll read it and you go, oh, that's not a country that's going to be like something is not, you're going to have to separate to form different countries where like they want to live like this and then other people want to live under law and order, because like you can't do anything. A city requires certain things to function. A state requires certain things to function. You can't have this kind of stuff, and eventually even liberals will awaken it. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, drawn 40 years ago, and it was drawn pretty roughly in a style that I'm not so crazy about. But then I saw Abe Canales do it in Iron Sights, and it worked really well in that comic, and it kind of grew on me. So the girl was drawn in black and white, and it's a little ambiguous, but there's a black guy in the comics, and then in comparison, you can see the compare and contrast. Like she's clearly not April O'Neil, I think, is clearly not African. She could be anything from French, Mediterranean, Persian, anyone who's got lighter skin, but not like the lighter Northern European. Like she doesn't come off as Nordic or Aryan from Northern or Northern Europe type. She's something from the South, but it's like it could be anything of 100 million people, mostly just because the drawing is so rough. And then later they gave her a perm, and it made her look. This is all crap. Oh God, I hate that 90s stuff. I hate all this crap. I hate all these people. More important, it's important to hate all these people. Let's get to here. They gave her perm, and it made her look more Middle Eastern, but she clearly wasn't African, because the guy on the right is of some sort of African origin. The girl on the left in the bottom right-hand panel is the character. It's like, what exactly is she? I don't know, vaguely Italian or something. And then when they interviewed the artist, they said in their minds she was European or Asian, so that's kind of the final word. But it really doesn't matter. It's like all this is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. And there's like, no, you should not be supporting this in any way. Hollywood always race erases blonde or red haired European characters because they hate them and they hate you, specifically for African ones. And in Hollywood's mind, the binary seems to be like Nordic, Aryan Europeans versus Africans. Other groups seem to disappear because Hollywood doesn't do nuance very well. And part of this is they really, really just do hate you and they want you gone. They own the characters. They can do whatever they want with them. Your options are never to pay the parasites in Hollywood and just crap on them as much as possible. Bring as much attention to these people as you can to discuss what they're doing, that they're erasing and genociding an entire group of people. Seth Rogen is an anti-white scumbag. He and Silverman did some anti-Christian Santa movie, and it was just like the standard filth and degeneracy. And it's amazing that, like, what did they think was gonna happen, making a movie about what is Christmas? A Nordic European history, at least where it started, or it's a combination, I think, of northern pagan holidays and like the winter solstice, and then Christianity kind of mixed all in. But it's very much, Anyway, so the only thing amazing about it was the comment section for that Santa Incorporated. It was absolutely golden, and the memes that came out about Seth and Silverman, people hate those two as well. They should. They deserve all the hate and more. They're horrible, horrible people. And Silverman is just as bad as Rogan. They really, really are the hateful racists that they project Like they're evil, flat out evil people. I mean, I really can't convey that enough. Anyway, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was something that people enjoyed, and for most of the history of it, April was a red-haired European. Even in the black and white beginning, she wasn't African. So anyway, they destroyed it because they hate you. Changing the character is a destruction of the art. It doesn't matter. Like in this case, they're specifically changing it for Africans, but if they change it to make her look specifically East Asian or something else, it's still destroying the character. You can't change the character because it's no longer the same character that people got on board with. But they use African because in their mind, that's the top of the privilege ladder of the cultural Bolshevik hierarchy in their mind. Like, no. These are the last people who believe in treating people equally. So they always change the characters just for African instead of any other group on Earth. I mean, it's like 99% of the time you're going to see red and blonde hair swapped for African. It's basically, if humans enjoy it, these parasites will come along and erase European characters. They buy out the IP rights to it, and like once you own the rights, it's just that's all it is an intellectual property. You can do with it as you please. And then when you mention it, they call you istophobic. And yikes, my guy, touch grass. Just yikes. Go put your fingers in a woman while touching grass simultaneously. Yikes, friendo. It's like tried hackneyed and overused phrases from the left. They really don't understand that because that's kind of their. They repeat phrases so often, like literally the yikes, my guy, touch grass, go outside, put your fingers in a woman, whatever the thing is, because they know that those are safe, allowed phrases. They don't want to do anything that's problematic. Because they're terrified of being canceled by the left, because they very much will get canceled by other people on the left. It's got to be exhausting to be on the left and always be looking over your shoulder because the other people on the left will do anything to stab you in the back. They hate you, and they're just like, because they view it as like if they stab you in the back and correct you for being problematic, then they kind of ascend higher up on the ladder from you for some reason. And it allows them to virtue signal. If you see it on Twitter, like if you're on Twitter for 6 months, you'll see it. And you just look at these people like, oh God, it's got to be miserable being you. It's better to just like be on PC right from the start, and that way you don't have to worry about it. It's like the South Park method, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia method. I mean, the Always Sunny immediately bent over and cucked, but like you're offensive right from the start. It's like this is what you're getting into, friend. So I mean, like don't even come on board if you're going to be offended. But South Park was clever because they started like making fun of Jesus Christ and Christians, which is brilliant. Because then when they went after Muslims, Jews, and Hindus, and blacks and whites and everyone else, every other protected category, it's like, so you didn't have a problem making fun of Christians, did you? But made fun of Scientologists and you lost your freaking mind. Weird. Does that make you hypocritical? Yeah, it's a brilliant way to go about it. Anyway, yikes, my guy, touch some grass and put your fingers in a woman, and that will validate you. Because your only worth is how women can validate you for some reason. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.